Okay, great. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We have a very special guest for our fourth in our webinar series this week. This week for National Pet Week, Woofie's wanted to invite some special guests on, local experts in the community, to talk about the things that they work with. Phil Lassiter is with us today. He is a dog trainer and a dog behavioral expert. So before we open it up to Phil and to learn more about Phil, I am going to actually play a little video that Phil put together. So here it is now. Enjoy.
This is Fury. She is a Belgian Malinois. She is one of 4 dogs that I own. I am Phil Lassiter, owner of Respect on Both Ends, LLC. Now, I've had dogs all my life. It's hard to imagine life without a dog. My first dog was a German Shepherd. Fell in love with the breed, the way they looked, how smart they were, how they made you feel protected. As I grew up, my family noticed that I had a natural connection with each dog that we owned. They listened to me, they trusted me, came when I called them, quickly identified me as the alpha. Now, it wasn't until I began training dogs professionally that I really identified why my dogs obeyed me and enjoyed being around me as a child growing up. I fed my dogs, I groomed them, I spent quality time with them, I played with them, I took them for long walks, and I made clear, consistent rules for my dogs to follow. Even as a child, they trusted me. Developing a balanced relationship became the cornerstone, the philosophy of my training. Now, though every dog is different based on temperament, energy, and baggage, all dogs need to be in a balanced relationship guided by us. There must be respect on both ends of the leash. I enjoy training dogs. I enjoy working with dogs. And my dogs trust me.
I love that video, Phil.
Thanks.
That's such a great video. Thank you for sharing that with us, and it actually gives us a great background of how you started and your experience with dogs. So so why don't you go ahead and start by telling us a little bit more about how you got started into dog training.
Okay, definitely. First of all, thanks to Woofie's for allowing me to do this webinar, and thank you, Michelle, for asking me to do so. So I appreciate that. So I've been participating in or working professionally in dog training for over 12 years, and always had an interest in doing so. Been kind of teetering with it as a child in terms of what I thought I might want to do. And then I went into education, became a school teacher, got into sports, so was sidetracked with the dog training for a while, but still always maintained having a dog and having fun. And then made the effort later in life to get certified as a trainer. Started working in a dog sport called IPO or Schutzen, participated in that, and really liked it. Met some really nice trainers, people that helped me develop my style. Saw some good things, saw some bad things, and but it helped to develop me into my style. And then I started working at the Dog Day Afternoon teaching obedience classes. And so teaching classes is probably my favorite thing to do. since I am a school teacher, I've been doing that for going on 32 years. So that type of background um, really helped me or helped propel my dog training to what it is right now. So the video, it talked about, one of my main things that I talk to people about is developing a relationship with your dog. And there are many types of relationships that you can have. And the one you want to seek is a balanced relationship. It's got to be a good give and take, but you have to be the one that your dog looks for in terms of trying to get your dog to follow the things that you want. And so a lot of times it's unbalanced, and it's unbalanced in terms of how much either affection that we're giving or how much authoritative behavior that we're presenting to our dogs. And so sometimes that can create a behavioral issue with our dog that we're not really seeking to have. And our relationships are also based on our past. So our baggage, the things that we feel are necessary, we impose on our dogs, and they conflict, and sometimes they cause issues. So one of the things I want to talk about today in this presentation is how to first develop that good relationship, how to develop a clear method of communicating with your dog. And then, we'll look at the common problems that you're having with your dog. And then hopefully they'll be able to help you understand, hey, yeah, I'm doing this or I'm not doing this. And what can happen if I take a different approach to my relationship with my dog. So.
That's great. And I wanted to mention also to everyone that's on the webinar that we will be opening up for Q&A and questions after Phil is kind of done speaking about the things that he's presenting on. So definitely have your questions ready. And if something comes up and you do have a question while Phil is talking, please feel free to use the chat box. So at the bottom of your screen, there's a little bubble that says chat right underneath, and you can just click on that, type in your question, and I'll be able to read that over to Phil when I get a chance. But right now, in terms of talking about developing a relationship with your pet, two things come to mind. One is, how do you start that when you first get a pet? And then for owners that have had their pets for a long time, kind of identifying and understanding what kind of relationship you have. Like, I'm thinking about my dog right now, who I've had for 16 years, and thinking like, what kind of relationship do we have? I'm not quite sure. So what are the marks that you look for, the things that you look for when you're evaluating that relationship?
Okay. So first of all, if I'm planning on getting a dog, and I think that needs to be given a lot of thought when you're about to get a dog. Is this the right environment? Is this the right time for me to have a dog? Sometimes we rush into purchasing a dog, or we see those commercials on TV about adopting dogs, and we fall into that, oh my God, I gotta save this dog. And with great intentions to do so, but your setup may not be ready, or you may not be ready. So do some investigating, talk to people, talk to a professional trainer if you need to find out what and how you need to set up things. Do I have the right yard? But what I look for out of a dog, or what I suggest people to look for, is, does your dog get along well with people and kids? That's important. And does your dog get along well with other dogs? So if you're not equipped to handle certain issues that a dog might have, it would probably not be wise to invest in that type of dog if you know they present these issues, particularly with rescuing a dog. And so I always tell people, if you're not a mechanic, don't buy a car that needs work. Try to get something that's going to be suitable that you can manage. So that's kind of the first thing. Make sure that it's going to be the right fit for your family, because nothing bothers people worse than when they get that bad fit and they're trying to return a dog and they're feeling really guilty because it doesn't meet their household. And so I have a lot of people, they just feel so sorrowful for having to do that. But yet if they hold on to that dog, it causes a lot of problem with their family. So that's the first thing. And then once you do find that dog, then Loving that dog is great, but it can't all be about love. And so, as much as we want to cuddle and love that dog and do things for them, if that's all they get, we end up with a spoiled brat. And so, dogs can start running the household because of our failure to set some boundaries and some rules. So, know what rules you want set up for your house. Know what your ultimate expectations are, and make sure that you are going to be consistent in sticking with those expectations. So that's important. Also, understand the age of your dog. So I've gone out to homes where people have gotten a brand new puppy and they want that puppy to behave like a 2-year-old dog. And so trying to rush a dog and understanding there are certain things that go on. So like the nipping and the chewing and the biting, these are things that are just a normal maturation that occurs with a puppy as they grow up. Now you can still prevent those things, but you can't expect it to be fixed in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's a progression that has to happen. It's like expecting a 7-month-old baby to sit and eat with a knife and fork. It's just, there's a progression of things that you have to kind of be tolerable to be able to progress further. So that has to be in play. So feeding your dog, making sure that you're feeding them. I suggest if you're getting a new dog to crate them, and people feel guilty about the crating, but if you're providing the exercise you need for your dog, the crate is just a location that gives you a break. It's not a timeout, it's not a punishment for the dog, but it keeps them out of trouble so they're not chewing up your furniture, they're not chewing up your shoes. So if I can't be eyes on with my dog, then I put my dog in my crate. I give myself a break. If I want to sit down and read a book, I'll read a book. I bring my dog back out and then I start, playing again. So I had one lady that she was in tears. She said, I just can't do this. She said, I have to watch this dog all the time. And I said, why? Why not just put him in a crate? And she was crating him. She wasn't opposed to crate. But it just never dawned on her to have to put the dog in the crate, for a few hours during the day while she took care of other things. So, creating that boundary, creating those rules, grooming your dog. A lot of people don't realize that grooming helps develop a nice connection with your dog. So brushing your dog, giving them a bath, that's a nice connection for both of you to develop. And then taking your dog for a walk. Every day is a nice thing that if you can do that, and not like a 10-minute walk. If you can get your dog out for, a couple half-hour walks or a full hour walk, that's a nice connection with your dog. So, and then knowing how to play with your dog. So I always suggest playing with an item like a ball or a tug toy. Some people like to roughhouse with their dog, and then when they do that, the dog roughhouses back and bites, and so that develops some poor communication. But there has to be a method of play, walking, feeding, grooming, and then setting those rules. And once you get that established, you've got your relationship heading in the right track.
Gotcha. So there's two things I'm kind of thinking about. One is what you mentioned before, like integrating a new dog into your household, a puppy or maybe a rescue dog, and then your existing dog. Is it kind of too late when you have a dog already to then start trying to train it if you hadn't been doing that since you got your dog? Does that make sense?
It's not that's a great question. No, it's not difficult. It's not impossible to do, but your dog has a set of rules or habits that they're used to doing. And all you're doing is you're just making an adjustment. You're saying, hey, now these are the new set of rules. I think it's harder more for the individual to set those up than it is for the dog. So for instance, I have people that come to class with dogs that don't know how to walk appropriately on the leash. And so there's a method for training that and teaching that. And I can take that dog and, within 5 minutes, I can get that dog to walk with me by my side. That's the relationship I developed. Those are the rules that I set with the leash. if I hand that leash back over to that person, they're going to struggle again because they don't know how to set that up. So the dog has the capability of learning. It's training the humans to know how to organize what they want and communicate that appropriately to the dog. So it's not impossible.
Right. So it also is not just training the dog, but really training the humans and the owners to have a certain mindset when it comes to their dog.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that's majority of the time. And a lot of people I go out, they always say the same thing. Yeah, I know it's me. Majority of the time, it is. It's not always. Sometimes the dog has specific issues that have to be worked out. But in terms of certain, most behavioral issues that dogs are having in the house, it's the setup that we created. And our setup that we created, again, is based on our past, either past pets that we have or things that we perceive in our life that we put on our dog and try to get our dog to follow that. And it becomes confusing to the dog. That's why the communication is important. One of the things I had on my topics was dog language versus human language. And so how to communicate in a language that they understand is important. So a lot of the things that we communicate. So one example is a dog that jumps on you, and that's a common issue that people have. And so the dog will jump on us, and we back up, and we yell at the dog, and the dog will jump again, and we push him away, but we continue to move in a retreating fashion. Any movement that moves away from a dog becomes prey. And so the dog, a natural predator, continues to pursue. So even though you might be pushing that dog or kneeing that dog, if you give distance and you back away, you are helping their prey drive. So they continue to move forward. Dogs also know how to run from predators. So movement forward into a dog causes the dog to back up themselves, and they give way to the presentation of whatever's moving forward. So a lot of the cases with the jumping, if you just change your format and with an assertion of moving forward to your dog, that will help the dog to understand that that's an unwanted behavior. But we back up. It's just a normal thing. I don't want to get my clothes dirty, so I back up, and the dog keeps jumping. You keep yelling and screaming, and I back up. So changing that is important. So the dog that you saw in the video, and then another dog that used to train, they've done some protection work. And some of the things that, behaviors that we want in those dogs to do that are behaviors that you don't want in terms of a regular household dog. So we encourage that jumping because we want the dogs to be comfortable with jumping on people if they're doing protection work. So to encourage that, when we play with those dogs and we're playing tug, we are constantly backing up, and the dog jumps on us, and the dog feels empowered to do so. And so they feel like they can bully us, and if we move out of the way and retreat and back up, that encourages the jumping. So that's why moving the other direction will discourage that. So it's just a language thing. If a human walked too close to you, you would back up, and that would give them the message that you don't want them in your space. But to a dog, that looks different. And it's the same with recall. If I'm calling my dog and I'm moving forward, I'm now the predator calling my dog. And so what does your dog do most of the time? They run away. They're hiding behind the table. They run around the couch. My pursuit toward them puts them in a flight mode. And so they try to run away. But if I take a submissive posture, if I back up or kneel down, that is submission. The dog now comes toward me. So you could try some of these things. When you're done, try some of these things with your dog and see what happens. It definitely changes how you're doing it. But with a kid, if I have a kid that I'm scolding and I walk toward him and I say, you get over here right now, the kid will come over crying. To a dog, that makes no sense. Why am I going to come over there and get in trouble? So they retreat. So
Phil, we've heard a lot because of the stay-at-home order and quarantine, everything that's going on right now. We've heard a lot about people adopting shelter dogs. for a company, and to have at home with them. When it comes to rescue dogs, what are your recommendations for training a dog that you might not necessarily know the full history of and the background of?
Um, Another great question. So first thing I would do, for sure, I would ask every question I could before that dog came home. Um, if and again, the number one question is does this dog get along with humans? Does it get along with kids? That's got to happen. I'm not going to bring a dog home that has a problem with children. It's not safe. It's not worth it. And so that's going to be the first thing. And if you have pets, you got to make sure that that dog is good with other dogs. So ask the question. You got to be a little bit of a detective when you're doing that. And then once you've done that, again, the thing that generally happens is that rescue dog comes home, and the vision that you have is that commercial you see on the TV with the dog chained up and shivering, and you create that reality for that particular dog. And so natural instinct is to grab that dog and love that dog and hold that dog and give them nothing but that, and not really create the boundaries that you want. And so that can sometimes cause, or that majority of times causes a problem. So you want to bring that dog home, and you want to make sure that you're establishing rules. Rules doesn't mean that you're mean. It just means that this is just the procedure at my house, and this is what is expected from you. And you do have to understand they're not going to pick up the things right away, so you've got to be patient with that. They can't just come in, okay, yeah, I got the rules, I got this down. You got to give them a little time of doing that. And generally, a dog that comes home from the shelter, it takes them about a month and a half to acclimate to your environment. So they're going to be quiet. You're not going to see the real dog until later. It's kind of like going out on a date. The first couple of weeks, I'm getting wined and dined, and then you've been with this person for a month and a half. Oh, now I know who you are. So dogs are kind of like that too. Once they settle in, you get to see them. But if you're upfront at the beginning and establish what your rules are, and you stay with them, it's going to make a big difference. A lot of people will also try to get into obedience class right away with their dog. That's not necessarily a bad idea, but you have to remember what's your relationship with that dog. Right now, I don't have a relationship with you all at all, and I'm trying to make you do work. So you can do that, but at home, you've got to make sure that you are building that relationship. I'm feeding you, I'm taking you for nice walks, I'm playing with you, and I'm setting up a structured environment for you. So as long as you're doing that, taking classes isn't a problem. So kind of rambled off here. I hope I didn't get off.
No, that's great. We're already getting some questions in, so we're going to get to those in a second. And one of them has to do with exercise. So can you just, before we get to those questions, can you give us a general overview on how much exercise a dog should be getting? I know it probably varies per breed and age, and what type of dog, I guess. But what are your thoughts on that?
So I would kind of give it. So I'm a physical education teacher, and so we tell our kids 60 minutes of exercise a day. So I would say that's going to be on the minimal side for your dog. Now, or that's what you should at least be shooting for. And it's not going to be perfect. Work interferes with things. Sometimes family comes up. My dog might miss a day of getting 60 minutes or whatever. But that's what, if you could strive for that, I think you're going to be on the safe end of that. Now, breed and working line dogs. So there are a lot of people that they see movies and, some dog that's highlighted, like the dog Max, a Belgian Malinois, like my dog. And, I got to have that dog. The dog is great. They see what this dog can do. What they don't realize is the requirement that dog needs for exercise. And my Malinois requires a lot of exercise. And I got her because I plan to do some competing with her. So I got her for this particular reason. And she with that particular drive, it offers a requirement from me that I have to meet, because if I don't meet that requirement, she'll become destructive. And I'm sorry, I'm looking overhead and a herd of deer just ran through my yard. um, but yeah, that she needs that requirement. And so understand the dog that you're getting and know that I've got to meet that. And so sending my dog out in the yard is not giving my dog exercise. And a lot of people do, well, I got a big yard. So if they're anything like my dogs, if I send them out in the yard, they'll go out and then next thing they're laying right by the door because they want to be where we are. And so it's not about having a big yard and expecting them to play. And so what people will do is they'll get a second dog. And then, now they got the second dog and they're hoping that they're just going to run around and play. Well, they'll do a little bit of that, but you'll find two dogs by your door. So there has to be a need that you are meeting as an owner. And if you can't do it, then getting a dog walker can help in that situation.
Great. So we have someone that's asking about puppies. One of our attendees just got a puppy and is asking, how early do you teach a puppy to walk on a leash? At what age do you send them to training? Is it an all-day training, and how is a training program set up? So that's a lot of questions. But if you want to start with how early do you want to teach a puppy to walk on a leash, and at what age do you send them to a training program?
Okay. Great question again. And I love puppies. The behaviors that they produce. In my philosophy, I like to let them develop into who they're going to be. With, like I said, with structure, and not everybody can do that, because I know I can clamp down on things as they become inappropriate. But the 4 months is so with my obedience class, my basic class, 4 months is generally the minimum age for them to start. Okay. By that age, they can handle the pressure of you walking with them on the leash and teaching them, and the pressure of being around other people and dogs. They have the attention at that time starting that they can start paying attention to you in and around distraction. So before that, you can still work on some general things at home, but allowing a lot of the freedom. I don't try to get formal leash walking prior to 4 months. I let them explore, move around. I work on my recall at that time, work on getting them to come to me, and then rewarding that and trusting me as they develop. And then might teach them some simple sits and downs, but nothing that is requiring them to hold a sit or to hold it down. Just some general things, teaching them not to, what's appropriate to bite on, but understanding that that's what they're going to do. People get so frustrated. They keep chewing my pants. They keep chewing. That's what they do. And so, you have to be patient enough to work through that. Now, once they get to 4 months, like I said, my basic class, we work on a sit, holding it down, work on going to place, proper leash walking, how to be dog neutral to other dogs. That's important. And then I teach an intermediate and advanced class that work on higher level skills. So 4 months is the general age.
Is the training like a few hours? Does it take a series
Sure.
of?
So another good one. So I generally tell people, particularly people that are new, when you do if I'm doing a little training session, 5 minutes is all you need. So I'm working on my sit, I work on my sit for 5 minutes, work on my down, work on that for 5 minutes. And then everything else is just kind of structural around, the house. And then I limit, with having a puppy, they don't have my house. No way. I've got to have limits, because they'll walk off and then they'll go someplace and pee, on the rug or something like that. So I've got to be there to help train them for those common household things that come up. So.
I have a question, just speaking about being dog neutral. Someone's asking about needing advice on walking their dog. Every time she sees another dog, she starts barking, jumping, and lunging at the other dog. And how can I keep her calm?
So big suggestion there is to get to a class. So one of my things with communication with dogs, this is the main thing in terms of training my dog. My dog has to understand from me what's appropriate and what's not. And again, a lot of the times and the way that we communicate, we are not really communicating that. We're actually participating in it. So if my dog is pulling and lunging and growling, and I'm yelling at my dog, I'm actually participating in the event. I'm almost barking and growling too. My dog's like, yeah, let's get them together. And I'm trying to control this dog. Or if I'm restraining and holding my dog back, that restraint causes the dog to push forward harder to try to get toward that other dog. So I have to be able to communicate those behaviors that are inappropriate and what is appropriate. So there's a method of correcting your dog using your leash to do so, and then there's methods of rewarding behavior that's appropriate. So another miscommunication that people, in YouTube is a great thing, but sometimes people will see things on YouTube and think that they are the right thing to do, and they're not necessarily the right things to do. But a lot of times, if a dog is growling and barking, someone will have treats, and they start feeding their dog treats. Well, essentially, all they're doing is rewarding the behavior that they don't want, and their intention is to distract the dog from the other dogs, but you're actually just rewarding that. So I teach my dogs to leave that behavior alone. And when they offer me the right behavior, they get rewarded for the right behavior. I don't pay them to stop. I have them stop. And then when they are offer me the behavior, then they earn a reward out of that. And so my suggestion for that person is to take a class. I can explain it, but explaining it doesn't necessarily show you how to manage that. In my classes, that's the number one thing that I tell people. If you take nothing out of the 6 weeks that you're taking class, the leash walking is the number one thing you want to fix. And then teaching that dog to be what I call dog neutral. A lot of people will say sit, try to get their dog to be calm by getting them to sit. Sit doesn't calm them down, it's just a position. So I can be in a sit and still be anxious and shaking. I want my dog to stop the behavior. So I have to be able to communicate, no, that's wrong, consequence for this behavior. And then when we go to the next dog and my dog offers the right behavior, I go, yes, that's the behavior. And now I'm going to pay you for that. So you're doing the right thing now and you'll get rewarded, but they have to offer that to me.
That's great. Great advice. I have another question here that is about, sorry, let me just scroll up. What are your thoughts on remote trainers for a border collie? Do you do this kind of training?
I do. They're great tools for any type of dog that you have. And so what I suggest with the remote or the e-collar training, I always build a foundation first before I implement an e-collar. So my dogs will already know how to come back to me before I put an e-collar on them and then try to teach them with the e-collar. The e-collar just becomes a 100-foot leash. And so if my dog fails to come, I can communicate with the e-collar through a correction that that's wrong and then call them back. But they have already established prior to that a lot of leash work in the yard. And so one of the ways to work on your recall is, and that's what I was saying with a puppy, it's a great thing because they are very dependent. So calling your puppy, they come over, you say yes, give them a little reward for doing that. It's not bribery though, so I'm not holding the food so they can see it. I call them, and when they get there, reward that. And then you can add a 20-foot leash to a dog and do it in an area that's not much distraction. Work on calling your dog. If your dog refuses to come, it's just no, a couple quick tugs in your direction. It's not dragging them over. It's just you're signaling, come in this direction. Call them again. When they come, reward them. So you're creating a habit. And then as this progresses, add distractions with that. And then as that progresses, you put an e-collar on and then you transfer the type of correction that you're giving with the leash to the collar, to the e-collar. And then the dog will understand that, oh, this also means I need to get over there to you. So, but again, a trainer, I train that. So, but finding a trainer that can help you with that, that's important to do so.
That's great, thank you. We have a question here about dog attacks. Sometimes I guess there are dogs that are off leash, and when someone is walking a dog, whether it be a dog walker or whether it be an owner, these things can happen where an off leash dog can approach, and I don't know if attack is the right thing or seem like it's attacking. What is your recommendation for something like that?
So this is one of the things in my obedience class, week 6, I actually go over this type of behavior because it happens. It's going to happen. You're going to be walking and you're going to be approached by a dog. The first thing is don't take off running because then you're going to tap into prey drive. So, and that dog that is heading towards you is going to feel empowered by the fact that they can make you and another dog run. So they're going to continue that pursuit. So maintaining a neutral ground is good. And I've had this happen with my dogs. And so I'm comfortable with this. Not everybody is going to be comfortable with being able to take a step toward a dog and present themselves in a loud voice. But my suggestion is to move forward with a loud voice, either saying no or hey, and then holding your ground. Generally, that dog will stop because 95% of dogs don't want to engage with a human in an aggressive manner. They are domesticated animals. So unless they've been trained or accidentally trained, that means a dog that has gotten away with being inappropriate with a human and never been checked in it, that dog can develop an inappropriate confidence with humans, and so they'll continue to pursue. But like I said, 95% of the dogs, if you stand tall, have your energy projected as strong and hold that position, that dog will halt. And so I also tell people if you're, when you're walking, carry a little thing of, they make what's called dog mace or pepper spray or something like that. Keep that in your little, in your pocket or something. I carry a treat pouch, or it's not really a treat pouch, but a pouch that I carry when I walk, and it has poop bags and everything in it. But I carry a little thing of that just in case. Knock on wood, never ever have to do it. I've always been able to stop a dog that runs toward me. But if I have to, I can spray that in the direction first of where the dog is charging. And then if that doesn't work, I can spray the dog. And I always caution people, don't spray somebody's dog that's in their own yard. Just because they're, they can have that underground fence and then they might be running to the edge of the fence and you panic and spray somebody's dog, you're in the wrong of that. So, but yeah, it's happened to my clients. The tactic that I showed them has helped them out. But yeah, it's a reality.
Yeah, and I've seen also a lot of people pick their dogs up when something like that happens. Is that kind of the right thing to do if you have a smaller dog, to pick a dog up, or a puppy?
Know that once you pick that dog up, that the dog that's coming toward them, if you haven't been able to stop that dog, they're going to be biting at that dog. And with you moving your body around, you're going to be the target. Maybe not the intentional target, but you're now running the risk of being bitten. So if I had a small dog, I would probably pick it up, me personally, but I would walk toward the dog that's coming toward me in an assertive fashion and make that dog stop. So that dog would not come toward me. It would be the same way as if I had a bigger dog on a leash. I don't allow my dogs to be in front anyway to greet that dog. So my dogs will be out of the picture. And my dogs trust that, and they don't get involved in the situation when a dog is off lead. They trust who the leader is and they wait, for me to handle the situation. But yeah, that's a good question.
And do you use words? I've heard you say you step forward, but are there words that you use when something like this happens?
I'll just be loud with my voice. Like I'll say, hey, or no, as I'm moving toward the dog. So being loud, making myself big. Again, it takes a lot for a dog to challenge a human. And I know this because of working with dogs in protection work. It takes, about, 18 months to 2 years to get a dog confident enough to go after somebody in a bite suit or a sleeve. Someone that's moving toward them and yelling. They don't just automatically come with that. I don't care what the breed is. So it takes a lot of doing that. And I've seen dogs in competitions that were not well trained, and they run off the field because they weren't ready for that level of competition with a person, in a bite suit and yelling at them. So, if you're looking at it from those types of dogs who have higher drive, majority of dogs that are out there aren't going to do that. Now they do feel stronger in a pack. So if there's a group of, if there's more than one dog pursuing you, like I said, having that little pepper spray or mace or something to help protect you, that's when that definitely could come in handy. But
Great.
the majority of times dogs are just curious. They'll run up, they'll be barking. And if you, like I said, just don't take off running unless there's a door right next to you that you can slip in. Just kind of maintain your position.
Thank you, Phil. I have a question. This one is regarding loud noises and thunderstorms. We were speaking a little bit about that before the webinar. This question says, I have a 23-month-old golden retriever, solid working therapy dog, not fearful or startled by loud sudden noises, but she started to be nervous with thunderstorms. We do not coddle her, instead provide activities and treats, but still see her anxious during storms. Do you have any suggestions on how to work with that?
One of the things they have tapes that have thunderstorm noise on it, and or recordings of that. And if you get that, you can kind of play it off in the background. I wouldn't put the dog right immediately into that. It would kind of be a distant thing. And then, so I'll give you an example of what I do with train a dog for being able to handle loud sounds from a gun. Because in one of the competitions that I do, dogs have to perform obedience, and there's a starter pistol that's fired 3 times as the dog is doing it, and the dog cannot break focus. But initially, dogs can be a little shy of that. So one of the things to help with that is we had a starter gun, and my wife helped me with this. She had a starter gun. She went in the front yard, and I was in the backyard with the dogs that the dog I was trying to get used to this. And so because it was off in the distance, it wasn't that big of a shot. So it was fired. The dog got rewarded when there was no reaction. So I would feed the dog. And so the dog actually started associating that sound with, hey, tree's going to come. So he changed his perspective of what the sound was to the point where I could be right next to him and fire the gun, and he'd be expecting treat. So treat is coming. But it took a progression. It wasn't anything that was rushed. And then I look at what's the reaction of the dog when that distance, was from the front yard to the back. If there was a reaction that was unwanted, I would increase the distance. And then when the reaction went away, then I would decrease until my dog got used to it. So if I'm working with a dog with thunder, I would find something that eases, that the dog really likes to do, that's enjoyable, have the sound playing in the distance, and then maybe turn the volume up a little bit louder, looking at the progression. But maybe the dog is getting rewarded for not having reaction. And that will be my gauge to how I can increase the sound with that. But you don't want to reward it if it's a negative reaction. So if my dog is shying away or getting still, I don't want to reward it then. So
would that be the same method for fireworks as well, as we come up to the 4th of July? I know a lot of dogs and animals, of course, are scared of all those firecracker sounds, but would that be the same kind of training method?
Yeah, it would be the same. And again, it's a progression to get the dog to handle a certain degree of stress. So I don't want to jump the dog right in by throwing fireworks right near the dog. I've got to have it off in a distance and then have that joyous thing happening while the dog hears off at a distance and then slowly start working in. And some dogs move faster than others. Some dogs are born and they don't have that issue at all. They could care less. I had a dog that was training here. She just went home a couple weeks ago. I had her for 9 weeks. She did not have that issue at all. You could probably fire start again, she didn't care. So, but some dogs get really nervous with that. And you can develop it later. So you can have situations where they're not afraid of that, and then they can get traumatized later by something. So then you have to go back to the beginning or the drawing board and try to, reassociate the dog with that. So it's not, anxiety is not something that you can rush. It's just, you kind of go at a nice pace. They do have to be pushed a little bit, but not to the point where, they can't recover. So
Right.
you can get help if she's having trouble, finding a trainer that can help her with that would be good.
Great. I have a question from an attendee about working on recall, and how do you correct when you're working on recall and your dog is not coming back?
So the training has to start first on leash. So there has to be a practice set up over and over and over. And so you can start with a 6-foot leash at first, and just getting your dog to come back to you a distance of 6 feet. But I don't drag or pull my dog. My dog has to come back. And then watching my body language. So am I walking toward my dog, or am I staying neutral or being submissive? Submissive behavior helps the dog to return to you. So as I practice this with a 6-foot leash, and this gets really consistent, I add a 20-foot leash and I go out in the yard and I walk away from my dog, call my dog. When my dog gets there, I communicate that, and I use what are called markers. So I have an indicator when my dog is successful, and that's the word yes. Some people use a clicker as their indicator, but it's an auditory signal that lets the dog know that they did the right thing and that a reward is on its way. So as my dog gets to me, I say yes. I reach in my pocket, give a treat. I walk my distance away. I call my dog comes to me. I'll say yes, reward. If they don't come, I'll say no. And I give a few tugs in my direction. I don't drag them over. It's just like tug, tug, tug in my direction. And then I call again. If they don't come, I'll say no, tug again, call again. When they come, it's yes. And then as that gets better, with that, then I might let the leash go and move a distance of 50 feet, even though the line is still on the dog. If they decide to go the other direction, I can go over and grab the line. But then I work on that progression until it becomes consistent. And that's where the e-collar can come into play later, if you like to hike with your dog or take your dog to parks and have them off leash. But that's the progression. It takes work, but it pays off. It's nothing better than your dog coming back to you when you call them.
Yeah, definitely. We have a question about socialization and how to socialize dogs at this time, but also I think just broader and more generally, what's the appropriate way to socialize dogs? Is a dog park the right way? Is a doggy play date the right way? Or how do you go about socializing your dog or integrating your dog into with other dogs?
All those ways can work. My thing with the dog park, and I get a lot of people frown at me about this, and because it messes their world up a little bit. But I don't want to take my dog park to that park unless my dog listens to me. So if I go, and that makes me a responsible pet owner. So if I can go to a dog park and call my dog in the midst of distraction, my dog comes to me, I'm responsible enough to go to the dog park. But if I have no control over my dog and I just send my dog in, then am I really being that responsible in that situation? Now, can that situation work? Yeah, it can, but it can also go south really quickly. So that type of socialization, if you're with a group of people that you meet with regularly at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you know what their dogs are like, and your dogs are good with them, that's okay, and that socialization is good. But what happens if somebody shows up and their dog's a little different and you can't control your dog? That's when the dog park can become a problem. Play dates, those are good. If you, again, if I know how somebody else's dog is and my dog is, those things are good. Dogs definitely need to be socialized. That's why I said one of the key factors of bringing a dog home is do they get along with kids? Do they get along with dogs? You know, and because if they're going to be, you know, I'm sure relatives are going to have those, and those are things that you want. So having those play dates are good. Knowing how to intervene, knowing how to read dogs' body language is important so that you can stop something that's potentially getting out of hand. If I'm if I have the opportunity to go, you know, to daycare doesn't necessarily have to be that I take my dog there every day or every week, but it can be a good place to get your dog socialized with other dogs in a group environment and have them, you know, learn how to, you know, interact with other dogs appropriately, because dogs teach each other a lot. So that's important. But I wouldn't, you know, again, there has to be balance anytime you're integrating or socializing dogs. It can't be that that's all the exercise and interaction you're getting is socialization with other dogs, because dogs would prefer to be with dogs more than they would be with us. So a lot of times when people don't have their dog connected with them, they're probably more connected with the dogs that they're with, and that creates a bit of a problem. So you've got to make sure, you know, again, on the opposite side of that, that you're getting that individual attention to your dog. But socialization is important.
Phil, we have a question about a prey drive, and I guess this is probably along the same line or the same vein as dogs lunging at other dogs, but a dog lunging at a squirrel, let's say, or a cat in the neighborhood, and how to deal with something like that.
So again, leash walking, knowing how to manage that, and training your dog to be neutral. So the leash becomes an extension of you. And that's what your dog has to understand. So that's what you have to understand. And so you, some of the comments I hear is, well, that's just what dogs do. That's what they can do. That's not what they should be doing on leash. Your physical walk should not change once you attach a leash to a dog and you start walking. So how you normally walk should be how you normally walk, even with a dog attached to you. So now it requires the training of teaching the dog to not react to a stimulus that's outside. So whether it's a squirrel, a rabbit, another dog, I've got to train my dog not to do that, which means that anytime they act inappropriate, I have to give them a consequence for that behavior. And I generally use the leash to do that. So I give tugs. When they move, I'll indicate first of the failure by saying no, and then I give tugs. I don't restrain them, so I don't hold pressure on the leash. The dog has to learn to be by my side without any restraint. And that's when I know that the training is getting through. But class and working with somebody, again, I can say this, you kind of have to see it, because most people go, oh, my dog will never do that. And then I can tell you, I can take your dog and get your dog to do that. So, and, you know, in qualified trainers, they can take your dog and get your dog to do that. So it's just getting the proper training and communicating to the dog not to do that behavior, and then using the right tool. So there are a lot of tools. If you're taking my class, your dog has to be on some form of a collar, whether it's a buckle collar, a slip lead, or a pawn collar. And your tool has to give you the advantage of being able to manage your dog. And if you have a high drive dog, you're going to need a tool that's going to be effective enough to deliver a consequence that makes that behavior stop. So.
Okay, we have a question about helping a dog with car sickness. Do you have any tips or suggestions for how to handle a dog that gets sick in the car?
Do you have so if it's, do you have a way to that person? Does it have, like, how long does it take the dog to get sick? Can they respond to that?
They probably can. While we wait for that person so that we can get a little bit more context, another question that we have is about quarantine. So we're all in quarantine with our dogs right now, and they're probably loving it, enjoying life, and going out on 5 and 6 walks a day. But of course, that is going to come to an end pretty soon, within the next month or so, when that order lifts. And a lot of people are kind of curious as to how they reintegrate their dogs back into the environment that they had before, which was, maybe, the owners being away from home for 8 to 9 hours a day. So is there an integration period that they need, or how do we handle this transition?
That's a good question. That's a question I've been asking myself. Because yeah, my dogs, they get a lot of me when I'm not home. In terms of when I'm working in the school system, they still get a lot of attention from me. But now it's just been nonstop. And so one of the things that or suggestion that you, as we get closer to that time, start if you have the ability to be able to get out and go on a walk, start going on walks or increasing your time out of the house away from your dog to help your dog transition to you're not going to be there constantly every time you go out, I'm going out for a walk. So it's going to have to be some type of progression because again, I'm thinking of the same thing. Working in the school system, if we go back as scheduled and we're back in August, my dogs have never had me this long. I'm going to have to start separating togetherness and increase that. So it's going to be a struggle. It'll be interesting to see. You mentioned before with the shelters and a lot of people adopting dogs, and I think they're meeting their needs while they're home. And this is why we want to try not to be reactive in situations, but they're going to have probably some issues when they go back to work. And now it's, I didn't think about that. So yeah, great question.
Right. And it might also, just thinking of Woofies and our dog walking services, might also be a good idea if you can't walk your dog, maybe to wean your dog by having a dog walker come in the beginning, at least a few times during the day, to just kind of wean them off the schedule that they've been used to. And then I have some context here about the car sickness. So once the windows close, maybe 3 minutes, the car sickness starts, and if she is in the back seat. And then another person is asking about drooling once the dog enters the car.
All right, so I would start trying to make the car a comfortable place to be. So a couple things you can do. You can exercise your dog prior to getting in the car. So do something fun. Have your dog get in the car, get out of the car. That's it. Then do it again. Have your dog get in the car, have them sit in the car for a couple minutes with you, get out of the car with the door open. Do it with the door open. And then progressively start increasing your time, but you're not going anywhere. We want to make the car kind of a pleasant place to be. And you can have your dog in the car. If they have a favorite ball, you can have the ball in there as you're sitting in the car, have your music, just have your dog hang out, again, with the doors open, and then close the door, window crack, same thing. And then as you progress to that, get in your car. This is probably a good time to do this now. And then get your dog in the car, drive around the block, come back, get your dog out, do something fun, but do a progression of getting the dog to feel comfortable with the car itself, that it's not a bad place to be. And so that would be how I would start approaching that behavior.
Good ideas. So we are going to start wrapping up. We're at about an hour now. This has been amazing information. If anyone else has any questions that they want to just type into the chat box really quick. In the meantime, Phil, can you tell us about what services you offer and how people can contact you?
Okay. So currently right now, my contract through the dog day afternoon. I teach obedience classes there. If there's any time, unless you're having some major specific issue, if you're just having general obedience, again, work on your recall, the leash walking, class is the best way to go because you're going to be exposed to other people and dogs, and it helps you get control of your dog in a situation where there's kind of chaos. And it makes you feel empowered that, hey, I can do this. And so that's the, the best service in terms of just general needs that you have. If you're having specific behavioral issues, maybe there's some aggression that's going on or anxiety that's happening, private lessons that can do that. Right now I'm doing stuff virtually. I'm not going to individuals' houses. My wife is a nurse in the ICU. And so even if you're cooped up, she comes home, there could always be a risk of me having something. So the virtual training is what I can do. And then I also do board and train. And so you can contact me, and if you want to drop your dog off for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 9 weeks, there are rates for that. But there's also in that we have to do some training individually so that how to manage your dog. So your dog can come back trained, but if you have your same skills, you won't know how to manage. So that's included in those packages. So.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Phil. This was amazing, great information. I know that people are definitely going to want to contact you and get some more tips and advice and training. So for all of those who attended the webinar, I'm definitely going to send you Phil's contact information, and you can contact him directly. But that's it for the webinar. And thank you to everyone who was in attendance. And Phil, again, thank you so much. We very much appreciate your expertise and for being with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Anytime. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.